You wake up and the world moves, but you don't. The morning light filters through the curtain, soft and distant, like a memory you can't quite touch. People laugh somewhere outside, and that sound, once familiar, now feels foreign. The day begins, but you can't feel it beginning. You breathe, you rise, you do what's expected, yet something inside remains still, untouched, unmoved. And in that stillness, a quiet question surfaces. What's the point of all this? You try to distract yourself, to think your way out of the fog, but meaning slips through your fingers like smoke. Life, once vivid, now feels like a story told in whispers. When joy disappears and purpose fades, what are you supposed to do? Where do you turn when you can't even feel your own aliveness? Maybe this emptiness isn't the end. Maybe it's the beginning of something deeper, a quiet call from within, asking you to see yourself differently. In this video, we'll explore 10 Buddhist lessons that reveal how sadness, emptiness, and uncertainty can become gateways to wisdom, not waits to escape. You'll learn how pain can open you, how silence can guide you, and how even in darkness, life continues to unfold in your favor. So, if you're ready to find calm within the confusion, let's begin. Lesson 1. Pain is not the enemy, it's the invitation. When pain enters your life, your first instinct is to resist. You tighten, withdraw, analyze, and search for a reason. You tell yourself something has gone wrong, that this feeling shouldn't exist, that if you were stronger, wiser, or luckier, you wouldn't be hurting. But Buddhism teaches something radically different. It reminds us that pain is not a punishment. It's not life's cruelty or karma catching up with you. Pain is an invitation, a quiet knock at the door of your awareness, asking to be seen, not solved. The Buddha called this truth dukkha, the inherent unease of living in a world that keeps changing. Pain, in this view, isn't a mistake. It's the natural pulse of existence. It arrives when we cling to what cannot stay, or when we resist what has already come. In that sense, suffering is not an enemy to defeat, but a messenger carrying valuable information. Every ache, loss, or disappointment is life's way of saying, there's something here you need to see. When you stop labeling pain as wrong, you begin to hear what it's been trying to tell you all along. Pain breaks the illusions that keep us asleep. The illusion that we're in control, that things will stay the same, that happiness depends on keeping everything in order. When those illusions crack, the truth begins to shine through. Pain humbles you. It slows you down. It asks you to stop pretending and look directly at what is real. It softens the hard layers of ego and brings you closer to the raw, unguarded part of yourself that you've been too busy to listen to. Most people try to run from pain, to cover it with distraction or positive thinking. But the moment you stop running, pain starts to transform. It shifts from being a storm you're trapped in to a teacher sitting patiently beside you. If you listen closely, it might reveal a boundary you've ignored, a grief you've buried, or a truth you've been postponing. Pain is not here to destroy you. It's here to remind you that something within you deserves care, not control. In Buddhist teaching, the lotus flower blooms only through the mud. Without the heaviness of the earth, its petals could never open to the light. The same is true for you. The mud of your life, the heartbreaks, the fears, the disappointments, is not separate from your awakening. It's what makes your growth possible. Pain grounds you, matures you, and teaches you to breathe through uncertainty instead of fighting it. So the next time pain visits, pause before you name it bad. Don't rush to fix it or silence it. Sit with it, breathe with it, and simply ask, if my pain could speak, what would it ask me to notice? Perhaps it would ask for rest, perhaps for forgiveness, or perhaps it would just want to remind you that you're still alive, still capable of feeling deeply, still connected to the pulse of existence. Pain isn't your punishment, it's your invitation. The moment you stop fighting it, you begin to hear its wisdom. And that's where true healing begins. Lesson 2. Emptiness isn't meaningless, it's spacious. In Buddhist teaching, the word shunyata is often misunderstood. To many, it sounds like nothingness, as though emptiness means a void, a cold silence where meaning disappears. But in truth, shunyata points to something far more profound. It reveals that what we call emptiness is not absence, it is openness. It is the clear sky that appears when the storm of illusion passes. When the Buddha spoke of emptiness, he did not mean that nothing exists. He meant that nothing exists independently. Everything you see, feel, or cling to depends on causes and conditions. When those conditions change, the form changes, but the space in which it all unfolds remains. This space is not lifeless. It is alive with possibility. The emptiness you sometimes feel in your own life is not a sign that something has gone wrong. It is a glimpse into this vast, interdependent truth. When the roles and identities you once held begin to dissolve, when you lose a job, a relationship, or a dream, what remains is not nothing. What remains is the clear ground of being itself. The mind interprets that space as loss because it has been trained to fear stillness. But the Dharma reminds us, emptiness is the womb of renewal. If you rush to fill that space with distractions, you return to the old cycle of craving and attachment. But if you allow the space to remain open, if you simply sit with it, something subtle begins to arise. Clarity, presence, a sense of quiet understanding that does not depend on external form. Emptiness is freedom from false solidity, the freedom to let reality flow as it is, without forcing it into shapes that comfort the ego. It is not the end of meaning. It is the condition that allows meaning to arise freshly, moment by moment. So the next time life feels hollow, don't panic. Let the silence breathe. Ask yourself, what identity is dissolving so that something truer can emerge? Because in that spaciousness, the Dharma is already at work, clearing away illusion, revealing the vast, luminous ground of your own mind. Lesson 3. You don't have to perform to be worthy. From childhood, we are taught that value must be earned. We measure our worth through achievement, praise, and comparison. Modern life deepens this habit. Our days become performances, each act seeking approval from others or from an inner critic that is never satisfied. Yet the Buddha's teaching moves in the opposite direction. He reminded us that before you do anything, you already are. Being itself is sacred. In Buddhist understanding, the hunger to prove one's value is a form of tanha, craving. We crave recognition, security, validation. But craving always ends in dukkha, the unease that follows when what we grasp begins to slip away. The Dharma points to another path, to see that worth is not manufactured through doing, it is realized through knowing. When awareness rests in its own nature, clear, open and compassionate, it needs no decoration. Look to nature, and the teaching becomes obvious. A tree does not justify its existence by producing constant fruit. A river does not apologize when it slows in the dry season. The moon does not rush to be full every night. Each follows its own rhythm, complete in its moment. To live in harmony with the Dharma is to remember that you too are part of this rhythm, no more or less necessary than the wind moving through leaves. This insight doesn't mean you stop acting. It means you act without the burden of proving. Work can still be done, responsibilities fulfilled, goals pursued, but from a place of wholeness rather than deficiency. When effort arises from peace instead of fear, it becomes right effort, balanced, mindful, and free from strain. Try for one quiet moment today to rest without improving anything. Let the body breathe itself. Let the mind settle. Notice the uneasiness that whispers you should be doing more and smile at it gently. It too will pass. In that stillness, sense a simple truth. Your life is already valid. Reflection. Can I allow myself to be still without feeling less valuable? Because in that stillness, you touch what the Buddha called the unborn, the part of you that never needed to perform in order to be complete. Lesson 4. Darkness is a teacher, not a threat. In every human journey, there comes a season when the light fades. A loss, a failure, an ending you didn't choose, and suddenly, the familiar world grows quiet and strange. The mind calls it darkness and immediately looks for a way out. But in Buddhism, darkness is not a punishment. It is a teacher. It strips away what is unessential, leaving only what is real. The Buddha often compared awakening to the lighting of a lamp in a dark room. But the lamp is not lit without the night. It's only when the world falls silent that we begin to hear the voice beneath the noise. In the stillness of suffering, the mind can finally see its own habits, its clinging, its fear, its resistance. What we call rock bottom is often the ground beneath illusion giving way, preparing to hold deeper roots. In this way, darkness becomes sacred soil. It softens what has become rigid. It teaches humility, patience, and compassion, not the kind learned in comfort, but the kind forged in understanding. When you've sat in your own shadow and faced your own pain, you begin to see suffering differently in others. Their struggles no longer look separate from yours. This recognition, I too have known this ache, is the seed of true compassion. The Buddha himself experienced darkness, loss, doubt, hunger, fear. Enlightenment did not come by avoiding these things, but by sitting still within them. When he faced Mara, the personification of delusion and despair, he did not fight or flee. He simply touched the earth and said, "This is my witness." In that moment, the darkness revealed its true nature, not as a threat, but as a doorway to wisdom. Your own darkness holds the same potential. When life removes what is easy, it also removes distraction. It invites you to rest deeper into being itself, to find light not outside circumstances, but within awareness. The night is not against you, it is preparing you. Reflection. What has my darkness quietly taught me about light? Because sometimes the most radiant parts of the soul are not born under the sun, but grown gently in the quiet soil of the night. Lesson 5. Stop forcing meaning. Feel the moment. The human mind is always searching for reasons. When pain arises, it asks, "Why did this happen? What does it mean?" It runs in circles, hoping that explanation will bring peace. But the Buddha taught that peace doesn't come from analysis. It comes from awareness. Meaning is not something we chase through thought. It unfolds naturally when the heart is quiet enough to feel. Every experience you've ever had has two layers, the story and the sensation. The story lives in words and theories. This shouldn't have happened. I deserve better. I must have done something wrong. The sensation lives silently in the body, a weight in the chest, a tension in the stomach, a tremor behind the eyes. The story wants to solve. The sensation simply wants to be seen. True healing begins not when the story is perfect, but when the sensation is allowed to exist. The Buddha compared this to being struck by two arrows. The first arrow is pain, the unavoidable discomforts of life. The second arrow is the story we create about that pain. Why me? How long will this last? The second arrow is self-inflicted. When you drop the story and turn your attention to the raw experience of the moment, you remove the second arrow. The first may still be there, but it no longer defines you. This is what mindfulness truly is. Not detachment, but intimacy with the present. It means to feel the ache of sadness without calling it failure, to breathe with anxiety without demanding it vanish, to notice joy without gripping it tightly. Each moment, pleasant or painful, becomes part of the living Dharma, impermanent, changing, and therefore precious. Not every wound offers an answer. Some moments do not exist to be solved, they exist to be felt fully. When you stop forcing meaning, the mind becomes soft, like soil after rain. In that softness, understanding arises on its own, quiet, unannounced, but unmistakably clear. Ask yourself gently, what am I feeling right now? Without trying to name or fix it. If you can stay there, just breathing, just noticing, you'll discover that peace was never missing. It was only waiting beneath the noise of explanation. Lesson 6. Nothing is permanent, not even this sadness. One of the most liberating truths the Buddha ever shared is also the simplest. Everything changes. Every joy, every sorrow, every breath, all arise, linger for a time, and pass away. This truth is called anicca, impermanence, and it is the foundation of freedom. Yet when sadness visits, it's easy to forget. The mind whispers, "This is forever. I'll always feel this way." But no state, however deep or dark, has ever lasted. Even despair has an expiration date. Think of the mind like the sky and emotions like the weather. Storms may come, fierce, loud, and seemingly endless, but they never own the sky. The clouds drift, the wind changes, and eventually light returns. In the same way, your sadness is not who you are. It is simply passing through the vast space of awareness. The more you fight it, the longer it lingers. The more you observe it without resistance, the faster it moves on its own. The Buddha compared our emotional life to a river, always flowing, never still. When we cling to pleasure or run from pain, we suffer because we are trying to freeze the river. But when we allow the current to move as it will, we float instead of drown. Healing, then, is not a matter of control. It's a matter of surrender. This doesn't mean indifference. It means understanding that clinging and aversion are both forms of fear, fear that the present moment cannot be trusted. But if you look deeply, you'll see that impermanence is not cruel. It's compassionate. It ensures that pain cannot trap you forever and that joy can always return. It keeps life alive, fluid, and endlessly reborn. So when sadness feels heavy, don't rush to escape it. Sit quietly and notice its movement. Feel how it shifts even slightly with each breath. Whisper to yourself, this too is changing. Because the truth is, you are not the sadness. You are the awareness witnessing it pass. And once you understand that all things rise and fall within this awareness, you'll no longer fear endings. You'll see that impermanence doesn't take life away. It's what allows life to begin again. Lesson 7. Don't abandon your sadness. There's a quiet pain that most people carry. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that waits. It's the heaviness that comes when something inside you has gone unacknowledged for too long. We live in a culture that fears this sadness, that rushes to silence it with distraction, advice, or forced optimism. Yet from the Buddhist perspective, Sadness is not an error in the human design. It's a form of honesty. It's the soul's way of saying, I'm still here, I'm still capable of feeling. Sadness is not weakness, it's sensitivity awakening. It shows that your heart hasn't gone numb. The Buddha never asked us to reject emotion. He asked us to observe it, to meet every state of mind as a passing guest. When sadness appears, it's not a punishment or a flaw in your practice. It's simply another visitor at the door of awareness. The question is not how to get rid of it, but how to sit with it without turning away. Most suffering is born not from sadness itself, but from our rejection of it. The mind labels it as bad and immediately tries to escape through work, entertainment, or endless thinking. But avoidance only deepens the wound. The Buddha compared this to being shot with a second arrow. The first arrow is the pain of life. The second is the story we tell ourselves about it. When you stop shooting that second arrow, when you let sadness simply exist, it begins to soften on its own. Try to see sadness as a teacher, quiet, patient, persistent. It teaches humility, reminding you that control is an illusion. It teaches compassion, showing you the shared nature of suffering. When you've known your own sadness deeply, you can finally understand the sadness of others. That understanding is not intellectual, it's embodied. You feel it in the way you listen, in the way you treat people, in the gentleness that naturally replaces judgment. In this way, sadness becomes the foundation of compassion. The heart that has suffered becomes capable of holding the suffering of others. This is why the Buddha called compassion, karuna, one of the highest forms of wisdom. It is not born from detachment, but from intimacy with pain. To hold your sadness with kindness is to stay fully human, even when the world tempts you to harden. So the next time you feel that quiet ache rising in the chest, resist the urge to fix it or explain it away. Instead, turn toward it gently. Ask yourself, what part of me needs comfort, not correction? Maybe it's a younger version of you who was never allowed to cry. Maybe it's the tired part that's been pretending to be strong for too long. Sit beside that sadness the way a monk sits beside a candle, silently, patiently, allowing its light to flicker and fade in its own time. You'll begin to notice that sadness doesn't actually want to stay forever. It only wants to be seen, acknowledged, and met without fear. Once it feels safe in your awareness, it begins to transform, not into joy, but into understanding. And from understanding comes peace. Don't abandon your sadness. Stay with it kindly, because the moment you stop rejecting your pain, you stop rejecting your humanity. And in that acceptance, you discover something deeper than happiness, a quiet, unwavering love for all that is. Lesson 8. Healing doesn't erase sadness. It teaches you to walk with it. Many people believe that healing means never feeling pain again. They imagine awakening as a clean horizon, no sorrow, no anger, no fear. But the Buddha's teaching is far more honest and far more compassionate. He never promised the end of pain. He promised the end of struggle with pain. Suffering, he said, arises not because pain exists, but because we resist it, because we demand life to be different from what it is. True healing, then, is not escape. It's coexistence. It's the ability to walk beside your sadness without collapsing under it. When the Buddha spoke of liberation, he did not describe a life free from all emotion. He described a heart that could meet each emotion, joy or sorrow, peace or confusion, with understanding. Most of us grow up believing that once we heal, we'll feel only light. But light and shadow cannot be separated. They define each other. A wise mind doesn't reject the dark. It learns how to walk through it calmly. The person who no longer fears sadness has already healed more than the one who never feels it. Healing in the Buddhist sense is the maturation of awareness. It's when you no longer see sadness as proof of failure, but as part of the texture of being alive. When grief returns, it doesn't destroy you. It deepens you. When loneliness visits, you know it won't stay. You recognize it like an old companion on the road, familiar, perhaps even dear. You greet it, bow gently to it, and continue walking together. The Buddha himself experienced this rhythm. Before his enlightenment, he faced illness, hunger, loss, and doubt. After enlightenment, those things did not vanish. What changed was his relationship to them. The arrows of life still came, but they no longer pierced the heart in the same way. He had stopped adding resistance to reality. That is what we mean when we say the end of suffering, not the end of pain, but the end of war with pain. When you stop fighting what hurts, you begin to notice something extraordinary. Sadness itself is not cruel, it's neutral, a natural human response, like rain after a long dry spell. What makes it unbearable is the story you build around it. This shouldn't happen. I'm broken. I'll never be okay. When that story dissolves, sadness becomes simple. It still visits, but it no longer rules you. Healing is also remembering that everything changes. Sadness, no matter how heavy, is fluid. It has movement. Watch it closely, and you'll see it shift from sharpness to softness, from contraction to release. Sometimes it transforms into compassion. Sometimes it fades into quiet gratitude, not for the pain itself, but for what it revealed. Every time you stay present with sadness, its edges smooth a little more, like stones worn by the river. There is a Zen saying, "The obstacle is the path." Healing doesn't happen by avoiding discomfort. It happens by walking through it with awareness. Each return of sadness is another opportunity to practice patience, acceptance, and loving kindness toward yourself. It is another chance to embody the Dharma, not just study it. So when sadness reappears, and it will, don't see it as a setback. See it as a continuation of your practice. Welcome it as you would a friend who's come to remind you of something important. Sit with it, breathe with it, and ask quietly, "What have you come to teach me this time?" You'll find that each visit leaves behind a trace of wisdom, a gentler heart, a wider compassion. The one who walks with sadness consciously is no longer its prisoner. You are no longer running from the storm. You are walking through the rain with an umbrella of awareness. Some days the air will be heavy, some days it will be clear, but you will know how to walk through both, steady, patient, kind. Because healing was never about erasing what hurts. It was about learning to walk with what hurts and realizing that, even then, you can still walk in peace. Lesson 9. Even in stillness, you are growing. In every life, there comes a season that feels motionless. When plans stall, inspiration fades, and nothing seems to move. You try to meditate, to work, to care, but even effort feels heavy, uncertain, or dull. The mind says, "I'm stuck." But the Dharma says something different. You're not stuck, you're rooting. In nature, growth is not always visible. A tree spends half its life doing work no one can see. In winter, while its branches stand bare against the wind, its roots are quietly strengthening underground. What looks like dormancy is not death, it's preparation. The same is true for us. There are seasons when your outer life pauses so that your inner life can deepen. The Buddha called this viriya, the quality of steady energy, not the frantic push to achieve, but the quiet endurance that allows transformation to unfold in its own time. When progress slows, the mind becomes restless. It measures growth by movement, by outcomes, by applause. But the path of awakening is different. It measures growth by depth, not by speed. It asks not, how much have you done, but how fully are you present with what is. Stillness, too, is part of practice. In sati, mindfulness, we learn to stop chasing results and to simply see what is happening right now, the breath, the body, the subtle textures of mind. The Buddha described meditation not as striving toward a goal, but as dwelling in awareness. In that awareness, transformation happens quietly. The roots of wisdom grow in silence, not in noise. Think of the moments in your life when nothing seemed to be happening. Times of confusion, grief, or rest. Looking back, you may realize that those very moments shaped you the most. While the surface looked still, something within was rearranging. Your patience deepened, your priorities shifted, your understanding of life softened. You were learning to see without the constant movement that once defined you. In Buddhist practice, this period is known as bhavana, cultivation. Just as a farmer does not tug at the seed to make it sprout, we do not rush awakening. The mind must rest, digest, and integrate. Even the Buddha, after his enlightenment, often spent long periods in quiet reflection, not teaching, not traveling, but simply abiding in the stillness of knowing. When life slows, it is tempting to think you've lost your way, but the stillness is part of the path. Every inhalation has its pause. Every wave returns to still water. The pause is not absence. It is the necessary rhythm of all existence. To honor that rhythm is to trust anicca, impermanence, the natural arising and passing of all things. The modern world worships movement. It praises productivity, progress, performance. Yet in silence, the Dharma unfolds. Insight does not bloom under pressure, it ripens in patience. Sometimes the most spiritual act you can perform is to do nothing, not in apathy, but in faith that the unseen roots are growing. You can witness this directly in meditation. Sit quietly and notice the breath. At first, the mind feels dull, distracted, but stay with it, without judgment, without demand. Gradually, awareness begins to widen, like dawn breaking through fog. What seems still begins to move again, not outwardly, but inwardly. Clarity arises not from effort, but from allowing. Even confusion is fertile ground. When the mind questions itself, what am I doing? Where am I going? Something honest is stirring. The ego's certainty begins to crumble, and in that cracking light enters. Every uncertainty you face is loosening the grip of identity. Every pause in life is an invitation to see what remains when activity stops. So don't measure your progress by visible change. The Dharma often grows beneath the surface, in the soil of patience and trust. When you can honor stillness as much as success, your practice matures. You begin to realize that awakening is not an achievement. It is a revealing. It doesn't happen because you push harder, but because you finally stop resisting the natural flow of growth. Ask yourself gently, what quiet growth might be happening beneath my surface right now? Perhaps it is compassion ripening through pain, humility forming through failure, or peace learning to stand on its own without applause. The tree doesn't see its roots grow, yet it stands taller each spring. You too are growing, even now, even here in this very stillness. The work is being done within you, whether you notice it or not. Trust that. The roots are moving deeper than you can see. Lesson 10. Sadness is the door back to your true self. There comes a moment in every sincere seeker's life when sadness stops being something to escape and begins to feel like something sacred. At first, it arrives like a storm, fierce, unwanted, disorienting. It breaks what you thought was solid. It takes away your sense of control. But if you listen closely, beneath the thunder of sorrow, there is something softer calling you home. Sadness is not here to destroy you. It is here to dissolve what is false. It strips away the masks you have worn. The one who must always be strong. The one who must always be fine. The one who must always know what comes next. It removes each layer of performance until only one thing remains: the raw, unguarded presence of who you truly are. In Buddhist understanding, this process is not punishment. It is purification. The Buddha taught that all forms of suffering are invitations to awaken, not signals of failure. When sadness rises, it shows you where you've been clinging to identities, expectations, relationships, or dreams that can no longer hold you. It is life's way of whispering, this too must fall away so that truth can breathe again. You see, most of the time, we live from the surface, from thoughts, roles, and appearances. We believe we are what others see. But sadness has a way of taking all that away. It humbles the ego, softens the heart, and silences the noise. What remains is something quite yet infinite. Awareness itself, the silent witness that has been with you through every joy and every heartbreak. When the Buddha sat beneath the Bodhi tree, he was not escaping pain. He was meeting it fully. All illusions rose before him: fear, desire, loneliness. Yet he stayed. He did not fight the darkness. He observed it until its power dissolved. What remained was clear seeing. The awakening that arises when you stop running from what hurts and finally let it teach you. In the same way, sadness can become your Bodhi tree. When you sit beneath it with courage and compassion, you begin to realize that what feels like breaking is really opening. The heart cracks not to collapse, but to let light enter. The tears you shed are not signs of weakness. They are the river washing you clean of everything that isn't real. As sadness deepens, your relationship with yourself changes. You no longer chase constant happiness because you begin to understand something far more enduring: peace. Happiness is like sunlight. It comes and goes. Peace is like the sky. It holds everything: sun, rain, and storm alike. When you rest in awareness, you become that sky. Emotions move through you, but they no longer define you. In this realization, something miraculous happens. Pain becomes compassion. When you have sat with your own suffering long enough, you begin to recognize it in others. You see the quiet ache behind someone's smile, the exhaustion in their laughter, the fear in their silence. And because you have met those same places within yourself, you respond not with judgment, but with tenderness. This is the birth of karuna, the compassion that arises from understanding. The Buddha said, "If you light a lamp for someone else, it will also brighten your path." Every time you turn your own sadness into understanding, you carry a light that helps others find their way through the dark. That is the hidden blessing of sorrow. It teaches you how to love more deeply, not by avoiding pain, but by embracing the humanity within it. Through sadness, you also rediscover strength, but not the kind you learned from the world, not the strength of control, achievement, or perfection. This strength is gentle. It is the quiet endurance of the heart that has broken and healed 100 times, yet still chooses to remain open. It is the strength of the Bodhisattva, one who walks through suffering with compassion, refusing to close the door on anyone still in pain. The great paradox of awakening is this: the more you allow yourself to feel, the freer you become. You no longer need to numb your emotions or hide behind spiritual ideals. You realize that enlightenment is not an escape from humanity. It is the full embrace of it. The awakened one still feels sadness, still faces loss, but does not identify with them. They let emotions arise, live, and pass, like clouds drifting across an endless sky. In that sky of awareness, silence becomes truth. The need to explain, justify, or fix fades away. You begin to see that life does not need constant interpretation. It only asks to be witnessed. In silence, you hear the language of the heart, a language beyond words, where every breath says, "I am enough as I am." Sadness teaches you to trust this silence. It leads you into the still chamber of your being, where no identity can follow, no role can survive. Here, you discover that you were never the one who was broken. You were the one who witnessed the breaking. You were never the wave. You were the ocean all along, vast, aware, untouched by the movements within it. And when this truth begins to dawn in you, sadness changes shape. It no longer feels like drowning. It feels like returning to what is simple, real, and whole. What once felt like an ending becomes the doorway to homecoming. So if you find yourself in sadness now, resist the urge to escape it. Instead, bow to it. Let it be your teacher, your mirror, your path. Ask it gently, what truth about myself are you revealing? You may find that sadness was never your enemy. It was your most faithful guide. It guided you back to authenticity. It softened the walls around your heart. It stripped away the noise that kept you from hearing your own soul. And through it, you discovered what no outer success could give: the quiet dignity of being fully, compassionately alive. Because what breaks you open does not destroy you. It brings you home. There is a moment, after all the seeking and all the sorrow, when you realize that healing was never about finding something new. It was about returning to what has always been, quietly within you. The still awareness behind every thought. The breath that has never left your side. The simple truth that you were never truly lost. You don't need to escape emptiness. You only need to listen to what it's trying to teach. Emptiness isn't a void. It's a doorway. It clears the noise so you can finally hear your own heart again. If tonight feels heavy, let it. Don't rush to fix it. Sit for a while in the soft company of your own presence. Feel the weight of your body against the ground, the rhythm of your breath, the quiet unfolding of this very moment. You don't need a perfect practice, just one act of stillness. Maybe that act is sitting in silence for a few breaths. Maybe it's writing one simple line. Right now, I am here. Because in that small act of awareness, life begins to flow back towards you. All that pain, all that confusion, all that stillness, it was never wasted. It was life sculpting you into someone more open, more present, more real. So as you end this journey, carry this gentle knowing with you. May you meet your sadness with kindness, your darkness with patience, and your emptiness with wonder. Because the moment you stop running from life, life begins to walk towards you. And when it does, may you recognize it not as something new, but as the quiet home you were searching for all along.